Hey everybody, it's the Album Record Podcast. I'm Craig, joined as always by Andrew. We are talking about one of our favorite topics. Everybody thought that maybe this was going to be a Pearl Jam podcast when we first started it, but I think it's been a Foxing podcast for the better part of 2 years.
Yeah, it sure has. This band that I guess doesn't currently exist anymore
They're on hiatus, bro.
has just completely dominated the last 2 years for me. You know, they were I believe on my Spotify they were my number 2 most listened to artist this year, only behind Turnstile. And Turnstile had a new album out this year. Foxing did not. And so, yeah, something about I always really liked Foxing a lot. I would even say I loved Foxing, but something about that self-titled album just reintroduced this band to me in a entirely different stratosphere, and it made me love their older albums even more, which is again just a testament to how incredible that album was.
Yeah, once you saw where they arrived, all the steps along the way felt that much more impressive and interesting.
Yeah, because you see it, like you go back and you listen and like you understand the path that led them to that album, and it's cool to like put all that stuff into order like that.
So anyway, for those who don't know, Foxing put out that record in 2024 and they toured behind it and they scored a pretty nice, lucrative opening slot with Coheed and Taking Back Sunday in 2025, the summer of 2025, kind of leaking toward the fall. You and I watched a lot of those videos. It was kind of depressing just seeing them play in the daylight to very sparse audiences, some of which, you know, a Coheed audience is very Coheed centered. You know, they're not quite Rush in terms of Rush fans only want to see Rush, but it's close. And so I guess I wasn't completely and utterly shocked when they talked about how tired they were and how the relationship to the music and the band and amongst themselves, they wanted to take some time away in order to mend that stuff. And it culminated in 4 kind of farewell shows, 2 in Chicago, 2 in St. Louis, and I could not have jumped on it faster. Have you ever seen me jump on a ticket faster than I jumped on the Chicago tickets?
Definitely not.
And so December 3rd and December 4th, I went to both of the Chicago shows at Thalia Hall in Chicago. And this is where I'm going to turn it over to Andrew, who's essentially going to interview me about this.
Yeah. So a funny thing, before I get to talking to you about it, I will say a funny thing about that too is I didn't buy tickets because I had a work event scheduled that I needed to be there back for on Friday for. And that event ended up getting moved like that the week of. And so I told Craig, I was like, well, that got moved now. And it was to the point that I was looking, I had another thing I had to get back for. And it's like, and I had a meeting on that Thursday morning that I had to go to. So I was like trying to figure out the logistics. Could I get to the airport in time? Could I find a flight that would get me there in time? Ultimately, I couldn't quite pull it off, but I've never been more tempted to just impulsively like try to do something crazy like that. But so I was very jealous that it didn't work out. But anyways, well, I think the first thing to maybe just even talk about is just setting sort of the mood going into the show as you walk into the into the venue, as you talk to other people, as you even just like with the opening bands, like what sort of the mood was like in the room going into the show, particularly the first show.
Yeah, and this is where I'm really happy I went to both shows because it was polar opposites on both nights. We'll get into the set list and maybe why that is, but it felt like first night was a funeral. And the energy in the crowd was just subdued. Everybody felt like it was a special night to be there, but to the point where they weren't cutting loose. And it really took until 8 songs in to, I don't know how many songs did they play on night 1. They played 20 songs, including 3 in the encore. So halfway through the opening set, where the crowd finally was like, we are allowed to have fun here. Let's just have some fun. And some of that has to do with the set list. And I think some of it also had to do with the way the band was talking on stage. And in a couple of different ways, they were almost it felt like they were memorializing the band, but they were steadfast in saying that this is just a break. We will be back, and we don't know when, but we will be back. And so all the speculation and our worst fears that you and I had, they never get completely put to rest because anything can happen, and maybe they won't come back. Maybe time away will make them not want to come back. But at least I have the feeling or the assurance that they have every intent on coming back at this point.
I had a really good friend in college, and when we graduated from college, I don't know, maybe like 3 or 4 years after college, he was moving to Florida, and I remember like we were talking, we're like, oh yeah, we'll keep in touch, like obviously, like why wouldn't we? Like this, like one of those kind of things. Like it was just like it was no big deal. It was just like we have all the tools to keep in touch, social media, text messages, all that good stuff. And, so we had every intention of keeping in touch, but, life happens and, you don't run into them at the same places. We don't go to the same sporting events, and so you just kind of lose touch. And that happened. And, I hardly ever talk to this friend anymore. And it wasn't anything that, it wasn't anything negative. It wasn't anything like bad that happened. It was just life. And so that's my concern with Foxing. It's like the inertia now is that they are not a band, and they have to overcome that inertia to become a band again. And so that's a little bit of my concern. But
the only other thing that I would say to that is that I think they were maybe too available over the last 5 years, and they weren't able to create a sense of scarcity amongst their hardcore fans. And by
true.
doing this and having the 4 sold out farewell shows, I think it created a different narrative around the band, and that will pay dividends if and when they do decide to come back.
Yeah, I could see that. So I'm trying to remember, Pool Kids opened?
Pool Kids opened the 2
Just
shows
Pool
in
Kids?
Chicago.
Was there anybody else?
Nope, just Pool Kids, and Andy from Pool Kids, who was also the guitar player for Muck with Dikembe, that other band. He goes way back with the Foxing people. He said all the way back to before 2012. And so he's known them well over a decade. And so it was really cool for him to be able to play those shows with them. And he even stage dove night 2
nice.
On the last song.
What I was curious about, though, is how did the Foxing fans treat Pool Kids as an opener?
Much better on night 2, which I think probably had a lot to do with the crossover, the people who were there for a second night. But yeah, it was a little bit subdued, and Pool Kids tried really hard to do a lot of those pump up the crowd type things and crowd interaction type things that have probably worked all summer. And they fell a little bit flat with a pure Foxing crowd that was there to kind of memorialize the band.
Yeah. Well, and I know this isn't a normal show, but it's just kind of, when you like put the shoe on the other foot kind of thing, where suddenly now it's like, well, how do we, Foxing fans lamented the way Foxing was treated by fans of other bands. So how do they treat the openers, But
overall, I would say they were very respectful and pretty responsive.
Okay. So do you want to talk a little bit? Do you want to talk a little bit about the way Foxing came onto the stage?
Yeah. So night 1, they came on the stage, and it was kind of anticlimactic. They're a band that doesn't have a full road crew, and the mystique of watching Connor and all the rest of the band setting up their things.
Yeah.
Before they would leave the stage, and then the lights would come up, go down, and then they would re-enter the stage, and we all had to pretend like we didn't just see Eric setting up his pedal board and stuff.
Yeah.
And so in night 1, it was really kind of like all right, kind of a non sequitur. But then on night 2, they blew the roof off the place because they played the entire My Heart Will Go On by Celine Dion, and they came out when the key changes. And so it was simultaneously the cheesiest and greatest thing I've ever seen,
I
because
love it.
Connor came out into the middle of the stage and really hammed it up and pumped up the crowd and threw his arms in the air and got everybody going. And, they opened night 2 with a very different set list than they opened night 1.
Yeah, I didn't realize that was only night 2 that they did that, but yeah, I know you shared video of it. I saw tons of videos on Twitter of it, and it's pretty cool. So, do you just
Which
want to
brings us to the set list, by the way.
I was just say, you want to talk about the set list?
Night 1, they basically opened with the Albatross. It was Bloodhound, Intuit, the Medic, the Magdalene, then into Dealer. It was almost like their own Eras tour for a minute.
Yeah.
Not quite, but nearly an Eras type thing. Because then they played Glass Coughs and Eiffel from Dealer, which, are wonderful, amazing, incredible songs,
Sure.
but not exactly going to lift your spirits.
Sure.
And then they finally went into Grand Paradise, and that's when the crowd absolutely took off. But then on night 2, they opened with the Celine Dion Open, which was amazing. Mm-hmm. And then the opening notes of Secret History started, and the crowd was already moving. And they go, Secret History, Spit, Hell 99, Go Down Together. Wow. It's the first 4.
Just blistering. Yeah,
just
that's
killed
fantastic.
Everybody. And then Bastardizer, Cold Blooded, The Medic, and then Grand Paradise. And they killed everybody. They just killed everybody. And night 2, they finished their main set with Speak with the Dead, which is like just an 8-minute long epic where they're going crazy, and Connor's playing the trumpet, and just the whole thing was absolutely nuts.
And did they do the same encore both nights?
No. So night 1, again, talking about how the band almost led everybody to be sad. They opened the encore with Cry Baby, and Connor talked about how the song, he's like, hey, the song is not the reason why we're taking a break, but it's also not the reason we're taking a break. Like, listen to the lyrics. And so when they played it, he didn't say listen to the lyrics, by the way. That's me adding that in. And so all of a sudden you're hearing these lyrics in a totally different way and putting yourself in the headspace and mindset that they were in when that song was being put to recording.
And just real quick, just for anybody who's not familiar, Cry Baby, it's the closing track on the self-titled, and it's Connor expressing a sentiment towards his wife about how he wishes really he could live 2 parallel lives, one where he's in this band and one where he's just with her all the time. And it's just crushing to hear him talk about, like, he has this thing that he loves in his life, as in the band, but like it eats him alive that it's taking time away from being with her, and that he wishes it's this reconciliation that he wants both, but you can't have both. And so to your point, when you talk about maybe part of the reason why they're doing this, it's like, hey, like, you only get to be young in love, once, and this is, maybe he just wants some of that time to be with his wife full time and not have to be part of the band.
Yeah. And then, they closed that encore with Rory and Near My God, and they did Rory and Near My God to end the sets both nights.
Okay. Yeah. Which is a fitting way to end any Foxing show.
Absolutely. The other thing was we got on night 1 they played Trapped in Dillard's, which isn't like my favorite song or anything, but it's apparently the first time they ever played it.
Ever? Wow, I didn't realize that. They
never
played that.
Debut.
Wow. Huh.
I know.
Okay. Yeah.
Although it says,
was that true of Crybaby? It
says here that they played it once in 2020, but they said that they'd never played it before.
Okay. What about Crybaby? Have they played that before?
Well, that's a good question. I have to look.
That doesn't seem like something. It's definitely not something that was a typical song in their self-titled tour set list.
Well, they played it 23 times in 2024 and 25 times in, or then 15 times in 2025.
Huh. So just coincidentally, in all of those Instagram shows that I watched, they never played it.
I know. And you and I
Crazy.
watched a lot of Instagram shows.
Yes, I felt like I was on tour with them.
Yeah.
I felt like I was Eric's roadie because you're watching it like all from behind his point of view.
I'd kind of forgotten that they also went on the Coheed cruise, the SS Neverender.
That's right. Yeah.
It's kind of amazing. All right. So what else?
Wait, but by the way, I'm not sure, but I think that cruise, interestingly enough, is where Hardlore did these interviews with Claudio from Coheed, Anthony Green from Ellis Dunes, because they're all like on a cruise. They're like these
Because
interviews.
Coheed, Thursday, Anthony Green, and that's where
So I wonder, was Twitching Tongues playing then as well, or did
I
Hardlore
don't
just
know.
happen to be there? I'm curious. Interesting.
Interesting.
But anyways, so I don't know. I guess maybe just kind of your feelings and emotions as night 2 comes to a close, and now you know that for the foreseeable future, you're not going to see Foxing anymore. How did you feel walking out of there? Like, was it a mix of emotions, or were you just purely on cloud 9, or like kind of maybe where it left you?
Yeah, it was all goosebumps and gratitude for number one, my family putting up with me traveling alone to a city to go see a rock concert. I've got a 15 and a 13-year-old. Life doesn't stop just because I want to go see a show.
Right.
But just there are certain concerts in your life where you just kind of feel like it's a little bit different. It's a little bit more special. I think about um, Pearl Jam at Madison Square Garden on 9/11 in 2022. Just because it was 9/11 and it was New York City and those shows were even more special than the ones in Fenway. Just in
Mm-hmm.
terms of feeling like a blockbuster where all the stops were pulled out. And so these two shows immediately come to mind as I was there when. I was there when Foxing played two of their final shows. I was there when Manchester Orchestra played Red Rocks for the very first time. And to be with these bands at those special moments where I know it's special for them too, and feeling like I witnessed some history, that's really, I'm not much of a collector in terms of, I got to put it in my notebook, but just I'll ride on that feeling of being at these shows for a really long time. And that's really what I'm chasing all the time when I'm
Yeah.
going to see live bands and when I'm listening to new records, is I'm chasing those feelings that I got when I listened to that Spanish Love Songs record for the first time. And then when I got
Mm-hmm.
to see them live, play those songs for the first time and scream those lyrics back at them.
Yeah.
And I met tons of Foxing fans. Everybody was super friendly. It was like a Foxing convention
Yeah.
where, I'm meeting people from Michigan who traveled. I'm meeting people who live in Chicago, but they're from all over the world. And everybody was there feeling special to be there.
Did you get any merch?
So in some ways I was unlucky because the merch got held up in the weather the first night, but that meant that there was a QR code. And so I was able
Okay.
to order my merch to be delivered later. And I got both Chicago posters coming, and I will get them.
Nice.
I'm actually thinking for the concert poster dorks out there, and rather than getting them framed individually, because they're essentially the same poster in different colorways, I'm thinking about trying to get them mounted on the same backing and framed together in one bigger setting.
That's cool. I actually got my own piece of merch from those shows today.
Did you?
They posted on Instagram that they have leftover merch, and so I went on there and got a t-shirt.
That's awesome. The other thing is on night 2, a woman was walking down the line, because there was a line to get in on frigid -5 wind chill Chicago streets, but she was handing out mini zines that she made, Foxing zines.
Oh, that's cool.
And so I was standing with some people who were probably 15 years younger than I am,
Yeah.
which also makes them 30.
Yeah.
And they were like, zine. What's a zine?
Oh
And I
my
was like,
gosh.
oh
Oh my
no,
gosh.
it's a physical media. It's a
Yeah.
homemade printed on printer paper or handmade printer.
Yeah.
So I had to
Yeah.
explain what a zine was to the younger folks from Michigan, who
That's
are
crazy.
lovely, by the way.
Yeah. Man, I used to
So
love
I actually still
zines.
have it. It's in the pocket of one of my coats. I'll have to
Yeah.
take some pictures of it and get it up there.
Yeah, nice. That's cool. So, all right. Well, I'm now that the dust has settled, when do you expect us to hear more foxing stuff?
I'm going to bet.
Like if they're going to come back, how soon or how long do you think this hiatus will be? How soon do you think it'll be?
So this is like sports predictions. Obviously, I know nothing, but I'm
Yep,
gonna be bold. I'm gonna say it with my chest out. We're gonna get an EP in 2027.
wow. Okay,
They're
much
gonna take
sooner
a
than
nice long
I'm
break,
anticipating.
and then Connor is gonna be writing something. He's gonna take it to Eric. They're gonna mess around with it. They're gonna do 3 songs, 4 songs, something like that. And by June of 2027, we're gonna have a Foxing EP.
Okay, I hope you're right, and I
Me
like that
too.
prediction. I'm going to say 2030 is the earliest that we'll get anything. That's my guess.
I kind of figure with all the nostalgia around the genre and everything else, I think by if I'm wrong in my prediction, even if we don't get any new material, we're going to get some one-off shows because someone's going to throw a bag at them.
Yeah. Well, and this is also just the difference between you and me. You're an optimist. I'm not. So
it's true. Yeah, you've already broken them up. They're never going to speak to each other
that's
again.
Right. That's right. It's
they grew
over,
apart.
man.
One of them's going to move to Florida.
Yep. Hey, man, you watch Connor and his wife. They're going to move to Europe, and that's.
But maybe it'll end up like Great Death, where the distance will only make them produce that much better.
The heart fonder, right?
Yeah. Well, this is our bonus episode. This was something we recorded after doing our top 10 for the year because you and I like to celebrate our holidays too. And
yes,
with Christmas and New Year's coming up, giving us back-to-back extra long weekends, it's lovely when the holiday hits so that it becomes 4-day weekends. So I truly think that this is the last episode of 2025. And we can't wait to talk to you in 2026.
Sounds good.
All right. On behalf of Andrew, this is Craig. Thanks so much for listening to all of our stuff this year. We'll talk to you next year. It's been the Album of Record podcast.